I got a voicemail from myself. I never made the call. The notification appeared at 3:17 a.m. I only saw it because insomnia had once again claimed my night, leaving me scrolling mindlessly through social media as the hours crept by. The small voicemail icon in my notification bar seemed innocuous enough. Probably a spam call I'd slept through, or my mother forgetting the time difference again. I tapped the notification, put the phone to my ear, and felt my blood turn to ice water. "Hey, it's me, listen carefully, whatever you do, don't..." My own voice. Not similar, identical. The same slight rasp from years of occasional smoking, the same subtle Connecticut accent I've never quite shaken despite a decade in California. The message cut off abruptly after those 9 words, giving way to static that gradually resolved into what sounded like distant, distorted screaming, before ending completely. I pulled the phone away and stared at the screen. The call had come from my own number. A prank, obviously. Someone had spoofed my number, used voice manipulation software. Technology made these things trivial now. Probably one of my friends with too much time on their hands. Except none of my friends would call at 3 a.m., and none of them had the technical know-how for something this elaborate. I checked the call log. According to my phone, I had called myself at 3:14 a.m., 3 minutes before I received the notification. I had been awake the entire time, my phone in my hand or on the nightstand beside me. I hadn't made any calls. Sleep became impossible after that. I sat up in bed, lights on, checking and rechecking my phone, listening to the message repeatedly. Each time, the distorted screaming at the end seemed to resolve slightly more into something almost comprehensible, as if my brain were gradually deciphering a language it wasn't meant to understand. By dawn, I had convinced myself of the most rational explanation: a technical glitch. Phones were sophisticated computers now. Software had bugs. Perhaps my voicemail system had somehow merged a past recording of my voice with static, assigned it the wrong timestamp. The fact that it came from my own number was peculiar, but not impossible to explain away. I showered, dressed, and left for work, deliberately pushing the incident from my mind. The message was waiting for me when I returned home. The same notification icon, the same timestamp, 3:17 a.m., though it was only 6:22 p.m. when I saw it. The same first 9 words in my voice. But this time, the message continued. "Hey, it's me, listen carefully. Whatever you do, don't go home tonight. They're waiting. They know you heard the first message. More static, more distant screaming, but this time, underneath it all, words barely audible. Coming through the mirrors." I dropped the phone as if it had burned me. This was no software glitch, this was no prank. I stood in my living room, suddenly acutely aware of every reflective surface. The decorative mirror by the entryway, the glass front of the entertainment center, the windows, now dark with night, reflecting the interior of my apartment back at me. "Don't go home tonight," the message had said, but I was already home. I called my friend Lauren, trying to keep my voice steady as I asked if I could stay on her couch. "Family emergency," I lied. "My sister in town unexpectedly. My apartment being fumigated." The excuses tumbled out, contradicting each other. Lauren, bless her, didn't press for coherence. "Of course," she said, "you sound terrible. Is everything okay?" "Fine," I said, already throwing overnight essentials into a backpack, carefully avoiding looking at any reflective surfaces. "Just need a place for tonight. I'll explain later." I grabbed my keys and laptop, then hesitated. My phone still lay on the floor where I'd dropped it. I needed it. Everyone needs their phone. But the thought of touching it again, of potentially receiving another message from myself, made my skin crawl. Ridiculous. It was just a phone, just an electronic device. I picked it up using a dish towel, as if that thin barrier could somehow protect me from whatever digital contagion it might carry, and dropped it into my bag without looking at the screen. Lauren lived 20 minutes away by car. I made it in 12, running 2 red lights and checking my rearview mirror compulsively. Not for police, but for something else. I couldn't articulate what I feared might be following me, but the dread was physical, a weight pressing on my chest, narrowing my vision. Her apartment was a sanctuary of normalcy. Scented candles, throw pillows, a television playing some cooking competition. Lauren took one look at my face and opened a bottle of wine without asking questions. 2 glasses in, I found myself telling her everything, the words spilling out in a torrent. The first message, the second message, the warning about mirrors, the identical voice that was undeniably my own. To her credit, Lauren didn't immediately suggest psychiatric intervention. She listened, nodding occasionally, her expression thoughtful rather than alarmed. "Let me see the messages," she said when I finished. I hesitated, then withdrew my phone from my bag. The screen was black, battery dead, though I'd charged it fully that morning. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by frustration. Without the messages, my story sounded like the rambling of someone in the midst of a breakdown. "Dead," I said, showing her the unresponsive screen. "But I'm not making this up, Lauren." "I believe you heard something," she said carefully. "But voicemail spoofing is pretty common. And stress can—" "This wasn't stress," I snapped, then immediately regretted my tone. "Sorry, I know how it sounds. But it was my voice, Lauren. Exactly my voice, warning me about something coming through mirrors." She nodded slowly. "Okay, so we keep you away from mirrors tonight. Easy enough." She gestured around her apartment, and I realized she'd already discreetly covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. "The guest phone charger is by the couch. Get some sleep. Things will seem clearer in the morning." I wanted to believe her. I plugged in my phone and tried to sleep. The notification came at exactly 3:17 a.m. I was still awake, staring at the ceiling, when the phone screen illuminated the darkened living room. The sound was off, but I saw the voicemail icon appear in the notification bar. My stomach clenched. I almost didn't listen to it. Almost unplugged the phone, turned it off, threw it out the window. But I knew with absolute certainty that ignoring the message wouldn't stop whatever was happening. With trembling fingers, I tapped the notification and put the phone to my ear. "Hey, it's me. Listen carefully. Whatever you do, don't go home tonight. They're waiting. They know you heard the first message. They're coming through the mirrors. Lawrence won't hold them anymore. They've adapted. You need to—" Static, screaming. Then, the painting in the hallway. Grandfather's compass. Only way to— The message ended. I sat frozen on Lauren's couch, my mind racing. Grandfather's compass? I had no grandfather's compass. My maternal grandfather died before I was born. My paternal grandfather, a stern man I barely knew, had left nothing but bitter memories when he passed. And what painting? Lauren had several abstract prints in her hallway, none of which seemed relevant to my situation. I got up quietly, careful not to wake Lauren, and moved to the hallway to examine the prints more closely. Generic mass-produced art, splashes of color, geometric shapes, nothing that could conceivably hide or reveal a compass. As I turned to go back to the couch, my phone lit up again. Not a call this time, but a text message. From my own number. "Behind the blue one. Hurry." The blue one? I scanned the prints again and noticed that one, a swirl of blue and white that suggested ocean waves, hung slightly crooked. Heart pounding, I lifted it from the wall. Behind it was a small wall safe I had never known existed. Not unusual in Los Angeles apartments, especially in Lauren's upscale building. But why would my mysterious other self direct me to it? The safe had a digital keypad. I had no idea what the combination might be, and waking Lauren to ask seemed unwise. Whatever was happening, I dragged her into it enough already. My phone lit up again. 1729. I hesitated, then entered the numbers. The safe clicked open. Inside was a small leather case weathered with age. My hand shook as I removed it and opened the tarnished clasp. Nestled in faded velvet was an antique brass compass, its needle swinging erratically, not settling on any particular direction. A compass that, according to all logic, should not exist in Lauren's wall safe. A compass that, somehow, the other version of me knew about. I nearly dropped it when my phone lit up with another text. "It points to where the barriers are thinnest. Follow it before sunrise. They can't move in direct sunlight." Follow it where? And who were they? The entire situation felt increasingly like a nightmare, but the solid weight of the compass in my hand was undeniably real. I made a decision. If I was losing my mind, going for a pre-dawn walk wouldn't make things worse. And if I wasn't, if these messages were somehow genuinely from another version of myself, then ignoring them seemed far more dangerous than following this bizarre guidance. I scribbled a note for Lauren claiming an early work emergency, pocketed the compass, and slipped out of her apartment. The streets of Los Angeles were as quiet as they ever get, populated only by delivery trucks and the occasional late-night reveler heading home. I stood on the sidewalk outside Lauren's building and opened the compass. The needle, which had been swinging wildly in the apartment, now moved with purpose, pointing steadily northeast. I began walking, checking frequently to adjust my course as the needle's direction subtly shifted. After 20 minutes, I found myself in a neighborhood I didn't recognize. Older homes, large lots, mature trees creating deep shadows even under the streetlights. The compass led me to a particular house, a once grand Victorian now showing signs of neglect, peeling paint, overgrown garden, windows dark. The compass needle spun in rapid circles as I stood before the iron gate. My phone remained silent. No new messages, no guidance on what I was supposed to do now. Common sense said to leave immediately. This was trespassing, possibly breaking and entering if I went further. But the compass's frantic spinning suggested I had arrived at an important destination. The gate wasn't locked. It opened with a slight creak that seemed thunderous in the pre-dawn quiet. The path to the front door was cracked concrete, weeds pushing through the fissures. Each step felt like a decision I could still reverse, right up until I reached the door. It swung open at my approach, not pushed by a hand but drifting inward as if moved by a gentle breeze, though the air was still. I should have run, any rational person would have run. Instead, I entered, the compass clutched in one hand, phone in the other, ready to call 911. The interior smelled of dust and something else, a sweet chemical odor, reminiscent of photography darkrooms. The entryway opened into a large living room, sparsely furnished with pieces that might have been fashionable in the 1970s. The compass needle now pointed directly toward a hallway leading deeper into the house. I followed, moving as quietly as possible, painfully aware of each floorboard that creaked beneath my weight. The hallway ended at a closed door. The compass needle pressed against the glass, straining as if drawn by a powerful magnetic force. I reached for the doorknob, then stopped as my phone vibrated with an incoming text. Don't open it. Circle room counterclockwise 3 times. Touch each corner with compass. Then open. I had come too far to ignore the instructions now. I began walking the perimeter of the hallway, counting each circuit, touching the compass to the corners where walls met. The brass grew warm in my hand, then hot. Not enough to burn, but uncomfortable to hold. After the 3rd circuit, I returned to the door. The compass had stopped spinning and now pointed steadily at my own chest. I opened the door. The room beyond was immediately familiar, though I had never seen it before. A perfect replica of my own bedroom, down to the smallest details. The stack of books on the nightstand, the chip in the wooden headboard, the specific arrangement of items on the dresser. But everything was reversed, as if viewed in a mirror, and seated on the edge of the bed looking directly at me was myself. Not a doppelganger, not a twin, but me, identical in every visible way, wearing the same clothes I had hastily thrown on at Lauren's apartment. The only difference was a thin line of what looked like black liquid trailing from the corner of his mouth. "You made it," my double said, my voice emerging from his mouth. "We don't have much time." "Who are you?" I managed to ask, though part of me already knew the answer would defy conventional explanation. "I'm you," he said, from a probability track that diverged about 72 hours ago, when we, received the first message. "That's not possible." I smiled tiredly. 6 months ago, you would have said getting voicemails from yourself was not possible. 3 days ago, you would have said finding an unknown compass in a wall safe was not possible. Your definition of possible is being forcibly expanded. He wasn't wrong. I stepped cautiously into the room, keeping the compass pointed toward him. "The messages, you sent them?" He nodded. From my reality to yours. It's complicated technology, hijacking cellular networks across probability barriers. I can't explain it all now. Then explain what's happening. Who are they? What's coming through mirrors? My double glanced nervously at the window where pre-dawn light was beginning to gray the sky. We accidentally opened something. That night we were experimenting with that meditation app, remember? The one that promised to expand perception beyond normal consciousness. I remembered, a silly app I'd downloaded after reading about sensory deprivation techniques. I'd used it once, found it underwhelming, and forgotten about it. In my reality, he continued, it worked too well. I perceived something I wasn't supposed to see. Spaces between spaces, entities that exist in the fold between dimensions. And once you perceive them, they perceive you back. What entities, I asked, though my mouth had gone dry with dread. They don't have a name in our language. They're perception parasites. They feed on awareness, consciousness. In my reality, they've been hunting me for 3 days. They've taken... His voice broke. Lauren, my parents, anyone close to me, replace them with copies that aren't quite right. The black liquid at the corner of his mouth dripped further down his chin. He wiped at it absently, leaving a dark smear on his hand. They're inside me now, he said matter-of-factly. That's why I needed to warn you. In your reality, you closed the app before full perception occurred. Your barrier is still intact, but they sense the potential connection between our realities and they're trying to cross over. That's why they're gathering in reflective surfaces. The boundary is thinnest there. I thought of the covered mirror in Lauren's bathroom. How do I stop them? The compass, he said, gesturing to the antique in my hand. It belongs to someone from a reality that battled these entities before. It can seal the breach between our worlds, but... He stopped, doubling over in sudden pain. When he straightened, more black liquid was seeping from his eyes like tears. I don't have much time. They're consuming me from the inside out, the last stage before they can fully cross over. He reached into his pocket and withdrew an identical compass to the one I held. We need to use both, one from each reality, placed at the exact spot where the breach is largest. Where is that? Your apartment, the bathroom mirror, that's where you used the app. I nodded, trying to process everything. What do we do? He convulsed suddenly, black liquid now streaming from his nose and ears. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, becoming layered with other tones, as if multiple voices were speaking through him. We must hurry, dawn approaches. They are strongest in the transition between night and day. I followed as he led me back through the house, noticing now how the walls seemed to pulse slightly, as if breathing. The sweet chemical smell had intensified, becoming almost overpowering. Outside, the sky was lightening. My double moved with increasing difficulty, his movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. My car is, I began. No time, he interrupted. We walked the boundary line faster than conventional travel. He led me to the side of the house, where a line of peculiar mushrooms grew along the foundation, white caps with black gills, arranged in a perfect arc. Step exactly where I step, he instructed. Do not deviate from the path. He began walking precisely along the line of mushrooms. I followed, placing my feet carefully in his footprints. The world around us seemed to blur, colors smearing like wet paint. A sensation of movement, far more rapid than our walking pace, overtook me, as if we were being pulled forward by an invisible force. Within what felt like seconds, but could have been minutes or hours, we stood before my apartment building. How? I started to ask. Probability paths, my double said, his speech now slurred as more black liquid flowed from his mouth. Shortcuts through possibility. Quickly now, they know we're here. We entered the building. The lobby was empty, the usual doorman missing from his post. The elevator arrived the moment my double pressed the button, its doors opening to reveal a mirrored interior. Not that, he said, pulling me toward the stairs instead. No mirrors, not until we're ready. We climbed to my floor, my double moving more slowly with each step, occasionally stumbling. By the time we reached my door, he was leaning heavily against the wall, black liquid now seeping through his clothes as if his entire body was liquefying from within. "Key," he gasped. I realized I didn't have it, hadn't taken it when I fled to Lauren's. "I don't..." He pressed his hand against the lock. The black fluid seemed to flow from his fingers into the mechanism, and the door clicked open. My apartment looked exactly as I had left it, yet somehow wrong. Shadows falling at incorrect angles, familiar objects seeming slightly out of proportion. Most disturbing was the quality of light. Though the windows showed early dawn outside, the interior was illuminated by what seemed to be late afternoon sun. "Bathroom," my double managed, nearly collapsing as we crossed the living room. "Mirror. Focus point." I supported him as we staggered to the bathroom door. It was closed, though I always left it open when the apartment was empty. A thin line of black fluid seeped from beneath it, spreading across the floor in intricate patterns that resembled circuit boards or ancient symbols. "Listen carefully," my double said, his voice now barely recognizable as human. "Open door. Both place compass against mirror simultaneously. Turn counterclockwise exactly 3 rotations. Do not look directly at what emerges. Do not speak to it. Do not respond if it speaks with familiar voices." "What happens to you?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. "I'm already gone," he said, and for a moment, the black fluid receded from his eyes, revealing my own gaze looking back at me with terrible clarity. "I'm just an echo now. A warning. Don't become what I became." He straightened with visible effort, pulling the other compass from his pocket. "Ready?" I nodded, gripping my compass tightly. "Now." I threw open the bathroom door. The mirror above the sink had transformed. No longer reflective, it showed what appeared to be an identical bathroom, but decayed, corroded, as if abandoned for decades. And moving within that space were shapes, vaguely humanoid but wrong, their proportions fluid and inconsistent, their surfaces seeming to absorb rather than reflect the strange light. They turned toward us as the door opened, their featureless faces rippling with sudden awareness. My double lunged forward, pressing his compass against the mirror's surface. I did the same, our hands meeting at the glass boundary. The entities on the other side surged toward us, elongated limbs reaching through the mirror like black oil, stretching impossibly. "Turn!" my double shouted, his voice now barely audible beneath layers of inhuman tones. We rotated our compasses counterclockwise, counting together. 1. The glass beneath our hands began to vibrate, the boundary between realities visibly thinning. The entities moved faster now, their reaching appendages almost touching us. 2. My double's form was deteriorating rapidly, chunks of black matter falling away to reveal not flesh but emptiness beneath, as if he were a shell being hollowed out from within. 3. A sound like reality tearing, a high keening note that vibrated through my bones and set my teeth on edge. The mirror's surface rippled like disturbed water, then solidified into ordinary glass, reflecting only the bathroom and our figures, my solid one and my double's rapidly disintegrating form. He met my eyes in the reflection. "Remember," he said, his voice now almost entirely other, "they can always find another way through. Another weakness. Another version of you who looks too deeply." His body collapsed then, not into blood and bone, but into a puddle of that same black fluid, which swiftly evaporated, leaving only empty clothes behind. In the mirror, my reflection stood alone, the compass in my hand now cracked and inert, its needle broken. That was 3 months ago. I've moved apartments twice since then, gotten rid of most mirrors and reflective surfaces, avoided anything that might thin the barriers of perception, meditation, sensory deprivation, even certain types of music that seemed to alter my consciousness in subtle ways. The voicemails have stopped, no more texts from myself, no more warnings. But sometimes, catching a glimpse of my reflection in a store window or a puddle after rain, I see something wrong with my face, a slight asymmetry, a movement that doesn't quite match my own. And occasionally, when I wake suddenly in the night, I taste something metallic and sweet at the back of my throat. and my pillow bears small stains of what looks like black ink. I think about my double's final warning often, about how they can always find another way through, another weakness, another version of me. I think about how he wasn't just warning me about them finding a way into my reality. He was warning me that they might already be here inside me, slowly converting me from within, as they did to him. I think about how easy it would be to check, to record myself sleeping, to set up cameras that might catch any changes happening to me during unconscious moments. But I don't, because I suspect that increased awareness, increased perception, is exactly what they want, what they feed on. So instead I live with uncertainty. I carry the broken compass everywhere, though it no longer functions. I avoid thinking too deeply about what exists between realities, or what might be gradually hollowing me out from the inside. And I never, ever answer calls from unknown numbers, especially when they come at 3:17 a.m.